Today I'll put together a beat from scratch using the Synthstrom Deluge, the Yamaha reface CS, and a couple of Eurorack modules. So this rhythm is what I've got going so far. The Varigate 8 Plus provides the slightly randomized gate sequence, and the sound comes from the neutron. It's kind of a poor man's FM thing, using just one fast LFO on the filter cutoff. This is the LFO rate. And when I make it very fast, the patch starts to sound a bit bellish, like an FM synth. I dial it to something harmonically pleasing by ear. I routed the output of the neutron to the Deluge via the CS, the green cable that is, going into the aux input in the back of the CS, which just passes audio through. The output of the reface CS is patched in through the Deluge's line in, and I created an audio clip on the Deluge with its channel set to left. That is because the signal coming from the neutron is mono, and the dot behind left means monitoring is on, so we can hear it. I'm also sending a clock from the Varigate to the Deluge so I can record in sync. As you can tell, as soon as the Deluge gets the analog clock signal, it starts playing. Now I can record by hitting record and then the launch pad for the audio track. You can see how the recording started nicely in sync with the clock. I'm gonna let this run for 4 bars. By hitting the launch pad again, I can easily stop the recording at the end of the current bar. Nice. Now we hear everything double because monitoring is still on. I'll turn it off by holding any pad of the audio clip, pressing learn and choosing left without it on. Now the funky phasing's gone. I want the Deluge to be the master clock from here on, so I'm removing the external clock. Now it's way too fast. I'll adjust the tempo to something similar to before. It's time for the reface CS now. The first thing I have to do is figure out what pitch this thing I recorded actually is. Since this is just any old random frequency, it turns out to be right between an A flat and a G. I'm going for a simpler tone on the CS for the tuning process. I just transpose it down by the sense until both pitches sound about the same to my ears. So I'm all set now. I think I'm going to do something with chords here. I'll send a MIDI sequence from the Deluge to the CS. First, I'm setting the root note of the scale to a G. You do this by holding scale and then pressing the pad of the note you want to be the root. This makes it easier for me to keep track of what's happening on the Deluge. I find it a lot easier to come up with something when I already have a little something going. In this case, the modular patch already provides a somewhat interesting rhythm and kind of a pedal note. So I'm punching in a bunch of chords that pair well with that G. You can easily see that they actually all have a G in them. I like what I've got so far, but it's repeating too soon. So I'll double the length of the clip by holding Shift and pressing the horizontal scroll encoder. This also duplicated the content of the first bar. I'm gonna edit bar 2 because obviously I want it to be different. I removed the first chord and now I'm gonna make some changes to the other ones. I'm listening back to bar 1 and try to hear in my inner ear how this could continue. To start the playback from the current screen, hold the left-right encoder and press play. Sounds pretty cool to me. I'm gonna make one more change. Since bar 2 is generally lower than bar 1, I'm gonna use a lower inversion for the third chord, simply to bring out this contrast a bit more. Now I'm moving some faders on the CS looking for a cool sound. I end up pretty much where I started, only the filter is a bit more open. I move the MIDI sequence down one octave to hear how that sounds. You do this by press holding and turning the up-down encoder. I like this, but I'm gonna readjust the filter. I'm adjusting the release slider, trying to make the sound long enough, but not muddy. I'm not too fond of its response curve, I have to say. I find it a bit difficult to hit the right spot. Next, I'll record this into an audio clip as well. Next, I'll get some drums going. I'll start with the kick. The kick could arguably be the most important instrument of them all, so it might be well worth it to pause and think about where exactly to place it. I'm gonna make the kick pattern 2 bars long as well. I'm editing bar 2. This last one, I'm gonna give a probability of 50%. Next, I'll add a backbeat. I'll go for a snap instead of a snare. Now that I have a little bit of a beat going, I want to add an arpeggio with the CS. Since the keyboard of the CS is already there, I'll use it to figure out my arpeggio. Once I have a bit of an idea where this could be going, I enter it into the Deluge. After some trial and error, I end up with this 2-bar phrase. I also record this into an audio clip. Next, I'll work on a bass line. I duplicate the MIDI clip with the chords to use as a starting point for this. I delete everything but the lowest notes. I move it down 1 octave. Then I start editing to taste. I reduced the number of different bass notes to 3, 1, 4, and 5, but added a couple of notes to make it rhythmically more interesting. I record this into the Deluge as well. Next, I took the bassline MIDI clip and turned it into a synth. I want to add more presence to the bass and thought maybe the Deluge synth can achieve that. I'm loading an init patch to start from scratch by holding Shift and pressing Synth. I'm changing the oscillator type to a sine. And I'm increasing the pulse width. It definitely has more high frequencies now. I add a bit of saturation. I add envelope modulation to the filter cutoff frequency. I transpose the second oscillator 1 octave down and mix it into the signal. It's by default a square wave. I'm adjusting the filter envelope, trying to make it a bit snappier. I'm increasing the filter envelope modulation amount. Next, I'll add some more instruments to the kit clip. Maybe some super simple hi-hats. Now I'm going for kind of a fill. I'll start with this clave sound. Next, it's gonna be a reverse snare. I pick a sample, reverse it, and place it before beat 4. I set it to stretch so it ends exactly where the note I draw ends too. Now I need a heavier hit on the 4 for this to make any sense. Now this sounds a bit separated, so I make the reverse snare longer. I want more percussion now, but I'll put it in a new kit. It makes performing easier. I'll start with this metallic sounding clap. I like the 80s vibe I've got going here. Up next is some more subtle percussion. The concept here is to use slightly different sounds for different 8s on the grid. A busier one here on all the upbeats. And the last one on all the downbeats to fill in all the gaps. Now I think this sounds pretty good and gives me plenty of stuff to play around with. Before I start jamming away now, I'm gonna record this last synth part. Some nice, simple and long chords. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like the music, please stick around for some more of this jam. In any case, thank you a lot for watching.